Thanks. Honestly, the biggest win was getting up here and not tripping on the stairs, so that feels super cool. So before we get started, I'll just say this up front. This topic kind of came out of trying to solve a problem within my own team. So everything I'm about to show you is something that we've discussed, implemented, or at least attempted a couple times and just felt like it was just an interesting topic to potentially present to people. Wow, my head looks huge. So first, a quick introduction. My name is Corey Boone. I'm a senior manager of data science within the CSC at Georgia Pacific. Don't ask me what CSC stand for. I don't really remember it offhand. But I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics and a master's degree in applied statistics from Kennesaw State University. Go Owls. I've got a little over 12 years of experience in data science, and I've worked across pretty wide range of companies and industries over that time. The industries include, but not limited to, manufacturing, automotive, healthcare, and power and energy. So I've seen a lot of different tooling stacks and a lot of different maturity levels within a team in regards to data science and personally, and various levels of SaaS backgrounds. So as green as a user to SaaS to as advanced as a user of SaaS. I was never really the advanced user, but I was pretty good at SaaS. So, but ultimately, that's what led to this talk today. So the title of this session is Modern Approaches in the Manufacturing World, Integrating Python Within the SaaS Environment. And that is a really long one. I probably used a prompt in Copilot to get, but the short version is this. How do we bring strong Python people into a SaaS environment without them being proficient in SaaS? And why does that matter, especially nowadays? So this talk is going to focus on the tools that already exist today. So specifically utilizing SaaS Viya, offerings like SaaS Studio, SaaS Flow, SaaS ID, where assuming your SaaS admins have things set up correctly, which we will also kind of cover in a little bit. Additionally, I'll be highlighting how you can run Python code that utilizes the benefits of CAS briefly. And that's huge. That means that you can take somebody who really knows Python and suddenly they're using some of the advanced capabilities that SaaS provides on their platform. And that's not theoretical. So we're probably going to spend a little bit of time on this. So get ready, buckle in. One of the things that I kind of wanted to start off with is gatekeeping. So what I wanted to talk about with gatekeeping is when you think about it, especially with candidates, think about it on the lines of resumes being sent in, applications, and what potentially you have in store to prevent certain resumes from reaching your desk. You're going to get a lot of them. So you probably have some form of filtering that's going on. And unfortunately, you might miss out on some users if you're specifically only looking for people who have SaaS coding on their resume. So this is kind of something that will open that up and bring more candidates to you that might actually fulfill your needs. Additionally, so you're going through the interview process and you're looking for personality fit, experience, tech knowledge, those things kind of go out the window. They're common things that we're looking for when we're talking to somebody just to see if we can, develop that trust. And you're coming to a conclusion on a candidate and you feel like, we really don't feel like their SaaS skills are up to par, or there may be a need for additional training that could potentially get them to start building things that you're wanting to start right away. So, you start kind of saying, what do I need and what do I don't need? Maybe take somebody who's less of a personality fit. Maybe they don't have the experience that you really need for your team, and maybe they do have SaaS experience, but they're really green and in the industry, which honestly can cause issues down later, because you might end up having to work with them and build them up, and then you start receiving that ROI. So additionally, with the capabilities of utilizing Python within SaaS, this opens up the idea of like, oh, these case studies actually are more meaningful too. I mean, I've jumped around to different jobs. I've had to experience many of different case studies where you have to code, you have to present, and you need to show flex your problem-solving skills. And these are things that you need to do to develop that trust anyways, but oftentimes people don't have access to SaaS at home in their personal use. So you're doing all these case studies within the open source environments, and then you want to throw them in the mix of having to learn a whole nother syntax. So these are things that you kind of have to think about, but I feel like nowadays you don't have to anymore, at least with SaaS's platform. So now we've hired somebody, and you go into the onboarding experience, which, after being with several different companies, they kind of can last up to 3 to 5 days, maybe even 2 weeks, till somebody is fully in the system and accessing all the things that are needed to actually start working on something. Which, oftentimes when you're selecting a candidate, maybe SaaS training isn't something you were intended to do. Maybe you didn't plan on it. Maybe you have some sort of project that needs to hit sooner that has a high value, and you need that person right away. These are things that aren't really an issue anymore, because now you can use it in the platform. So additionally, for future thoughts on your team, ways of optimizing. So like, you have a situation where you have all these users, or you have all these coders on your team, and you want to know, how do I start accessing some of these stronger capabilities out there? How do I get them accessing CAS? How do we use that advanced capability and start building things that are within that environment? Those are things that additionally, Python can now be pushed through and utilize those things. So I think one of the bigger things that are coming, especially for thinking about the future, is, especially because, the biggest thing that you hear practically over the last couple days, last couple months, is things involving Gen AI and the tools that are readily available now, or are now accessible within your teams. Say like tools like Windsurf, Cursor, these things that can expedite your projects. And what does that mean for this? Well, I'm probably going to get a little bit of trouble, but I would say if I was prompting and requesting some SaaS code, it's not always 90% there, maybe not even 85% ready to be done. Well, if I prompted and requested something of open source like R or Python, the outcome can be somewhere around 95%, maybe even 98%, depending upon how complex the problem is. And that's huge. That's potentially taking like a 2 to 3 week project and flipping it around to maybe 2 days, and then the rest of that time is validation, which if you give yourself a proper due date, you'll be fully fleshed and possibly in production before your client or stakeholder actually sees output, which is tremendous. So I think that kind of is like one of the bigger things that you can take away from this. So to kind of, ground this to real world situations, I wanted to kind of talk about something that I was starting to implement on my own team, and go through some case studies where we've actually kind of pushed people, thrown them to the wolves to see, okay, can I take a primarily Python user and turn them into somebody who can start utilizing SaaS? So we have a couple people on my team. They don't have any SaaS experience whatsoever, and kind of wanted to just talk about some of the things that we kind of developed just to test to see if we can get them through it. So I know seeing code, ew, especially in a presentation, but it has a purpose, so we'll get to that point. But basically, so just to set this up, I have a member on my team who had 0 SaaS experience, and he had a product that was anywhere from 95 to maybe 99% done. We were pretty much getting ready and geared up to move into production. He had it in dev. We were testing and showing results. So there's your QA. And we were pretty much ready, okay, where are we gonna implement this? So I took him as an example, which kind of extended the project a little bit, but not too much. But what we wanted to know is what are the pain points, what slows them down, and what do they actually need to understand to make people productive. So in this, what you're seeing is essentially what was scheduled. So once you can schedule something, maybe there's CI/CD set up in the background, you're accessing it through SaaS, so the code's ready to go, it's in a process that can be monitored. Well, okay, now all that is set up, let's get it into the SaaS environment, let's walk this person through the proper steps of getting things set up and see how long it takes for them to just get it into the different dev, QA, and production and within the SaaS environment. Additionally, getting other things set up, but ultimately, what we're seeing is, the code that is essentially used to call the Python code. This isn't 100% it, this is just an example, but it allows me to speak to it a little bit. So a couple things in order to set this up. So your IT or your SaaS admins will have to create a virtual environment. You can have the specific Python version, the versions of the packages that are needed, that especially was used when he was building it locally, and that can be implemented within the SaaS environment, and then you end up calling it. So those first couple lines of code is just calling that environment. So the next piece, which is just that Python wrapper, you're implementing and putting your Python code within the wrapper, and then that's it. There's really not a whole lot of setup once you get it to that level, and honestly, it can be a lot easier than this. So like, you could, under that options, last options code, put in an in-file statement and just direct it in the SaaS directory to your Python file, and then your proc Python wrapper just calls that file macro, and then that's it. There's nothing that has to be put in between, and it's possibly connecting to another database, because essentially he was running it with it locally and connecting to a database, and then that's done. That becomes a template, and that template can be shared with anyone else on your team. It could be saved somewhere where no one can overwrite it. They can just download it and place it where they properly need it, and boom, you're done. You create a job, maybe have a model monitoring team, like focus on making sure that that job runs every day, and then that person who has no SaaS experience just created code, pushed it into the various environments, and now it can run productionally. So it's as simple as that can be. And you can make it as simple, you can make it even a point and click situation. If I can just go to the next slide. This may have died.
Just try to keep moving towards.
Okay, cool. Oh. Oh.
Got any good jokes, Corey?
Me? I wish I could do the worm. I mean, that was cool yesterday.
That was awesome.
Oop, nice.
If I ask a quick question, when you were showing, was that in SAS Studio or in VS Code, or what was that you were showing?
That was SAS Studio. Yeah, within Via. So, all right. So here, so for a point and click situation, you have. Thank you so much. You have, if you're wanting to do something more of like a point and click. So if they're used to, maybe you're trying to make it easier, break things down and compartmentalize them in a way where people can easily access it. Especially if you have certain things, connections within SAS that need to be established ahead of time. So in this example, you pair somebody who understands SAS a little bit and then somebody who is strictly Python, and how do we get them a template for SAS Flow? So in this example, we created several different nodes, and those nodes kind of compartmentalize different pieces. So in your first node, you have your SAS config, which is your configuration file for SAS. So you have maybe certain SAS macros that are being called, auth domains, so that way you can connect to certain data sets. If you're not familiar with auth domains, it's just an easy way to connect to other databases. We do several different things with Redshift and eHANA and things like that. So an auth domain, you can get connected to a service account, so it can be group-wide. It just has a lot of different advantages. So you have your SAS config. Now you want to run your Python config. So your Python could be your imports, your different Python definitions that might have been created. It even could have been created by these Gen AI tools that exist now. You place those there, they get called. Then below is your actual first set of series of your main flow. Here you connect to your data import. It's going to pump data into your data processing node. That can be Python code, which may have just a little bit of a tweak in order to get a Python data frame set up. There's specific code in order for that to recognize a SAS table, and then does all the data processing like normal, like the code was originally. It'll pass to what we call the model code, so you may have some different code available that would do the actual modeling process, and then you push to a data export, which can be anywhere. Excel, somewhere within SAS, or externally like a different database. And the beauty of this too is once you compartmentalize, if you're running it and you get an error, you know exactly where to look. It's not just one big piece of code. There could be some situations where maybe the code will run and it's not very specific on where the issue is. So this kind of adjusts that for you, so that way you can easily tell, okay, this is where the problem is and I need to fix it. The next example is a SAS ID. This one was something that we kind of played around with a little bit, but it's another one to highlight that can also be used to utilize this kind of template approach where you can utilize Python. And in this situation, so much like a SAS flow, there is a node that you can access and place Python code. There is a couple things that you have to understand. There is some sort of indentation that has to happen that's very specific in order for it to run within SAS ID. But the benefit is once you create the SAS ID and everything seems to be running smoothly, it can be registered within the SAS Via platform, and that becomes easier for, like, say, model monitoring and things like that. So it does have some really, really good benefits. There are some caveats to talk about. So this specific example, this one requires a default Python. So if you are, say, a mature team and you have structured in a way to where everyone uses a specific version of Python or packages that have specific versions that are across the whole team, this makes this very simple. So this requires that specific kind of structure, in order for it to work, you have to specify the Python in the context, and then that cannot be changed. You cannot call a virtual environment within SaaSID. So it's very specific to that, but it is another option that you can create a template and have some user be able to immediately take advantage of SaaS. So the setup for all this, this is more of just to kind of give you guys an idea of what is needed, how do we get this rolling, especially if you're wanting to leave here and immediately take action. One of the things that I can't highlight enough, and I know they're here, so their ears are going to be ringing, but or they're probably going to have a big head, but can't stress enough, SaaS admins, I can't live without them, so I can imagine that other people can't live without them. So I can't thank them enough for everything they do, but the SaaS admins, they basically will be the people to set up all this. So being able to set up certain contexts, being able to, if you need an environment, create a virtual environment created for Python, they're the ones that you will have to rely on in order to get that set up. It's a process I'm not familiar with. I just know it does take time, but it is a need in order for Python to actually work within SaaS. Another thing about proper VIA context. So for that situation I was talking about, like if you were interested in using SaaSID or you already have SaaSID and you'd like to continue utilizing that because you really liked it, the default Python, I believe if I remember correctly, can be adjusted based upon the context. So you can have different contexts, which is similar to a virtual environment for Python. You know, you can set a default Python for that context, and then just whenever you build that SaaSID, you need to understand that that's the version that you're getting. It seems like a complicated process, but if you have the right people in place, it could easily be remedied. Python plan. So I kind of talked about this earlier. Having that plan where you set the structure, you're organized, you tell people, hey, this is the standard, you know, it really is beneficial. It keeps everyone on the same track. Yeah, there's probably some tendency to either have legacy code that cannot be upgraded or upgraded with ease. So having the team-wide structure means that anything new, you draw a line in the sand and you keep chugging away, you can keep everyone on track using the same version. So more or less a strong version control. And then, you know, setting up certain time periods periodically to go and update your planning and things like that. So it's really beneficial to have that plan in place so that way moving forward, everyone's on the same page, and it just makes it a lot easier and formulated whenever you're trying to apply this within the SaaS environment. So one thing that is super beneficial, and I talked about earlier about accessing CAS. So within SaaS Flow, they have this area called custom steps where you can create your own nodes that can do whatever you're attempting to do and make it readily available for your teammates to use as well. Well, some of those custom steps are readily available for you already. So SaaS validates some of these nodes that are available to download. You go to this Git location, it'll tell you what you're getting and all the, I guess, needs and requirements in order to make it function. And the reason why this is kind of a huge highlight, in my opinion, is it has this one custom step that allows you to push Python through a node that will utilize CAS's capabilities, which is huge. You'll be taking advantage of something that SaaS provides for you, and it ends up, you know, you're taking advantage of some of the advanced capabilities that SaaS has available. So this one is something that we are actively testing with, especially for some legacy codes that we would like to get into the SaaS environment. So this one's a really interesting one that I feel like is needed some love and some highlight. So For me, I like to bring everything all back into how is this impacting the business? And really and truthfully, that's kind of something that we need to take it away from everything. If you build a model, the model's great and all, but you need to be able to relate it to how it's impacting the business. So for this piece, I feel like something to walk away with is the understanding that you are essentially opening up the floodgates to different candidates that may not have been available to you or may not have made it past certain requirements that honestly could change your team. Maybe there was somebody that filled in all the boxes except for SaaS, which, if you're heavily invested in SaaS and you have all these capabilities going on, steering away from SaaS is going to be very difficult. So obviously, we would kind of draw a line in the sand and wouldn't take them anyway. So to me, this kind of opens it up. I mean, I don't even want to think about anyone that I might have deterred or looked away from just because they didn't have SaaS on their resume. The other benefit, and this is a true story, is I won't have anyone that I'm interviewing Googling things while I'm talking to them. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have experienced this yet, but I mean, I watched on video the reflection in someone's glasses. I could see them Googling SaaS answers, so they could fill that box for me, which is great and all, but you're lying. So they did not make it very far. Also, it was kind of just hilarious seeing everything flash up in their glasses. But anyways, another thing is, probably the biggest thing for all of our executives to understand is ROI. Like, I mean, you can get somebody going immediately. Once you're past all the HR onboarding and stuff like that, and they have everything set up, which should be relatively simple, especially if you're using, service IDs and stuff. But getting someone going. So, week 2, maybe they're already in meetings, having discussions. After the meeting, they're playing around with Cursor and Windsurf, and eventually they have the solution already made in day 6 of them being there. That's way different than what it was before. I mean, I can't imagine how long it took to onboard somebody and get them going on a project and maybe solely take it on their own. So to me, that's probably the biggest impact and something that our executive leadership would be super appreciative of. So additionally, the advanced tools. I mean, that's something that we're all having to focus on. I mean, the game has changed. Everything has shifted. I know it's scary, but at the same time, if you're creative, you're the master of, the best prompts, then, you're not really having to be fearful of this. There always is some level of validation that needs to take place. And honestly, if you're not an expert, it's going to be quite difficult to do. So if you're not incorporating ways to have these advanced tools being actively used, then that's something you need to start thinking about. And in this situation, with the platform that SaaS provides, you don't have to worry. You can be agnostic to their skill set. You can say, hey, you do R? Okay, cool. Go do R. We can build that. That's fine. Python? Great. Utilize these tools. Let's give you some templates and let's get you going. So it's kind of crazy that this is something that is actually actively readily available, and it's something that we could easily deploy with all in the same environment, especially with jobs and everything like that too. So so essentially that concludes my talk. Thank you for listening to me babble for like 30 minutes. Open to any questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Corey. If you guys have got any questions, raise your hand and I'll come running. One?
I have a question.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't
No.
see you.
Corey, can you confirm when you had SAS ID up there? Just confirm what ID stands for or what that is.
Oof.
Oh, you don't know?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you meant intelligent decisioning, right? Yeah.
That's
I just
correct,
wanted to
yeah.
make sure everyone knew that SAS intelligent decisioning.
I'm not an acronyms guy.
Which I think a lot of these folks probably license within their solution. So just wanted
Exactly,
to clarify
yes.
that. Yeah.
No, appreciate it. I forget that, yeah, it's totally different whenever you click the, what is it, the hamburger?
Yes.
Cool, yeah. So, intelligent decisioning. Getting our steps in.
Was the environment that you were showing, is that via 3.5 or via 4?
I believe, so I know that was via 4,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure all of that is accessible in 3.5 too. Yeah.
In via 4, if I understand correctly, there's Python support within the SAS Studio IDE kind of natively. Have you all tried to do that instead of the proc Python part?
We have played around with that. We just felt like it was easier to, I guess, deploy and create like a template that makes sense. But yeah, totally available too.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, great.
I know you're making all this effort to onboard Python developers or other languages, but how do they actually feel after a while after using SAS? Do they still incline a lot to Python, or they actually embrace?
You know, I probably should check in on that. I would, I would say that you know, some of the guys understood like what we were trying to do. So, you know, they still code in Python and everything like that. And honestly, we've been using a lot of those Gen AI tools that I was talking about. So we still focus on creating those Python codes if they're not SAS native, but they are immediately going to applying it to deploying in SAS environment, which is kind of like, you know, a move in the positive direction. I'm not saying that, you know, don't learn other SAS languages or anything like that, and that's not something that's in the plan. It's more so, you know, how do we get them going and comfortable? Because that comfortability just always is, I don't know, people get all icky with it when they're having to do something new. And if you make it simple to start, get them comfortable, then they get curious, and then eventually it just snowballs into them becoming like the expert that you were hoping for. Or at least that's the goal, right? Like it's all an experiment.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, good, nice and easy.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question, two questions. The first question is for database. Did you guys use the SAS to code database directly, or you do that in the SAS code separately? Because currently we use the Snowflake
Yep.
to code that in the SAS dataset and to pull up and to do some processing in the SAS and Python code. That's why I asked this question.
It's very dependent, right? Like, because if you can access it locally, say on your desktop through Python, and that's what the user was comfortable with, and we're capable of getting the same packages that enables that locally, then you should be able to access within just utilizing Python code anyways. So like, it really depends. I would say that the SAS flow example, having that SAS config is kind of what you're talking about. You can have that access through SAS first, and then you would just push it through that data import. But if you had somebody who was just primarily a Python user, then they should still be able to access with just Python coding too. So it's kind of great that you can have both options. Everyone loves options.
Okay, that's cool. So it's a control stuff. Another thing is, did you guys using that? Because I see that it's basically you put that in the SAS code, in your sample code, in the SAS code. My question is, did you guys put the Python script in there to do the whole process?
So
what I mean is because
are you talking about the
Maya
SAS Studio?
currently they have a SAS and also have Python.
Mm-hmm.
So, but based on what I see, that is just SAS. you pre-arc Python from there. Did you guys use the Python directly?
Specifically, the reason why we did Sass code with the wrapper is so you can call your Python environment. So you can specify that, then use your Python code. I believe that was the reason why we went that route and why I showed that one. I don't think that you can specify your Python environment otherwise, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Great, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks for that. I wanted to ask, I have been doing something similar, but I have been using Node.js, JavaScript. I downloaded that, and then, of course, I put my Python, Jupyter Notebooks, and my Sass with it. And I was just wondered if you use the Node.js, and if you don't, is there a Sass equivalent?
I haven't personally, but that's something I'd be interested in trying, especially because we definitely utilize a lot of notebooks.
Yeah.
But the examples that I have and what I've personally seen, I haven't played around with that yet.
Thanks. Okay.
Probably have to ask Leanne.
Oh, another one?
Just a quick one. So when you onboard developers, what usually is the time frame that you expect for them to be fully integrated and productive?
Tomorrow. No.
I know the expectation, the reality.
It really depends on what their level is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to ask somebody who just got out of college to be able to, do everything immediately. The hope is that that's why we're there is like their supervisors. So, we set like a pretty comfy deadline if we can. Where you need to push, you kind of step in, things like that. So I want them to be productive immediately. I think everyone would love that, but it really is dependent upon, the environment, everything going around. How quickly does that project need to be done? How complicated the data set is. So it really is just kind of seeing it, playing it by ear, I guess. Plus, I don't want to give you a specific because then I'm going to be held to it.
So Corey, I heard you say that GP went from VIA 3.5 to VIA 4.0. As one of the end users, have you noticed a performance improvement from 3.5 to 4?
No, just kidding. Yeah, tons. Honestly, it's there's like a lot of different I guess different adjustments that you end up noticing performance-wise. I know there was some upgrades to some of the models that are being used. So some of our previous work that got transferred over to 4.0 ends up just running a little bit faster. And by a little bit, that's like an exaggeration. I'm pretty sure I had a model that was like, it took maybe 30 hours to complete before, and then when we switch over to 4.0, it was getting finished in like 5 or 6, which scares you because then you're like, hey, probably not working. But when you check all the results and everything's there and everything looks good, then yeah. So we had some of that experience, like witnessing some of the upgrades just from some of our legacy code. And then when we switched to VIA, some of the, I guess just different, I don't want to say vibe because people say that a lot now, but it just feels, I don't know, feels comfy.
Okay, so I think we're out of time, guys. So I would love if you guys could show your appreciation for Corey, and thank you so much.